first question, Alex Salvi from Newsmax.
Good morning, sir. The United States has a vested interest now in the critical minerals inside of Ukraine following last year's agreement. We know that the United States this week is monitoring and hosting, of course, trilateral talks between Kyiv and Moscow. And while there does seem to be a framework, at least when it comes to security guarantees, when it comes to any territorial disputes, there does not seem to be much movement one way or the other. Is there any progress being made on that front, and do critical minerals play into those conversations? And separately, sir, if I could also ask about the New START treaty with Russia that expires tomorrow.
Yeah. I don't have any announcement on New START right now. I think the president will opine on it later. Obviously, the president's been clear in the past that in order to have true arms control in the 21st century, it's impossible to do something that doesn't include China because of their vast and rapidly growing stockpile. On the question of the talks, they're today and tomorrow in Abu Dhabi. Look, the good news is that for the first time in a very long time, we have technical military teams from both Ukraine and Russia meeting in a forum that we'll also be involved with, and our experts, Steve Woodcock and Jared Kushner will also be attending for part of that, and we think that's important. And look, I don't want to say talks alone are progress, but it's good that there's engagement going on. I would also caution everyone that on things like this, because there's a lot of sensitivities involved in it, progress is probably not going to be known, even via leaks, until we really have a breakthrough. Our goal is to remain committed. We've committed a year to this. We think we've made real progress. If you look at the checklist of open items that existed at this time last year and the checklist of open items that remain now in terms of reaching a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia, that list has been substantially diminished. That's the good news. The bad news is that the items that remain are the most difficult ones. And meanwhile, the war continues. So all I can say in that regard is that we are investing at a very high level, a substantial amount of time and energy to this endeavor. We are going to continue to do everything we can to see if there's a breakthrough. And one of the things to understand about ending armed conflicts is oftentimes it looks totally hopeless until you have this breakthrough that sometimes is unforeseen. That was certainly the experience with Gaza, where a lot of people thought that was a hopeless situation, but we kept pushing and pushing, and then circumstances aligned and made it possible. And obviously, that's what we're going to endeavor to do here as well. As far as critical minerals are concerned, look, that's a part of economic prosperity for Ukraine and its future. This war will end at some point, and when it does, Ukraine needs to be able to harness all of the resources of their country to be able to rebuild it. Ukraine has tremendous economic potential. It is a country that could probably double its GDP in the next decade with the right economic moves, and we certainly think that is a part of an enduring peace. And so a lot of work and thinking has gone into that ahead of time, and so that hopefully it will be able to be actioned on as soon as the war comes to a conclusion.
Now, there's been such an almighty fuss about the United States wanting Greenland. But who is noticing what China is quietly doing in Antarctica, the opposite end of the world? China is fast increasing its footprint on that continent. It's been building stations on this huge icy place to our south, as well as landing places and a permanent airfield. 2 years ago, it opened its 5th station there, a big one on the Ross Sea coast with room for 80 people. And now it's already building a 6th station in the Marie Byrd Land region. Australia has 3 stations in the continent, which is, by the way, is virtually a backyard, as it were. China, which is much further away, will have twice that many. China's ambassador says, don't worry, don't listen to claims that China's using these bases to spy or for military purposes. That's all banned under the Antarctic Treaty.
China's efforts in research on Antarctica is purely for scientific purposes.
But China has said it's going to be drilling underneath that ice to see what's there for research purposes only, of course. Joining me is Anne-Marie Brady, Professor of Political Science at the University of Canterbury in New Zealand, and an expert on Chinese and Antarctic politics. Anne-Marie Brady, thank you for joining us. I've admired a lot of your writing for a long, long time. What is China up to in Antarctica, and why, in particular, so many research stations?
Oh, good evening. Well, China has been spending a lot of money in Antarctica in recent years. They've slowed down a bit, actually, since Xi Jinping came to power, but they had a very big boost for about 10 to 15 years and expanded their presence in Antarctica. And they did what the Soviets did too when Antarctica opened up to setting up bases when the Antarctic Treaty was signed in 1959. They bagged spots, they grabbed spots at great locations, and then sometimes took quite a while to develop the bases. So China has now, they've also, apart from those bases that they now have, they have fully independent air, sea and land capacity in Antarctica. They have 2 icebreakers, they have helicopters, they have a plane, they have the capacity to go deep into the Antarctic hinterland in the Australian and Antarctic territory, which Australia itself doesn't have. So they've got really advanced capabilities. They've had a lot more money than anyone else to spend on Antarctica.
But what could it be possibly doing now? It says it's doing all these cuddly things. We're researching global warming. We're looking at ice cores, looking at nature and sweet little things like that. What could it actually be doing?
Well, China wants to be a polar great power. The Arctic and Antarctic are very useful for the great powers for military purposes, and people have suddenly noticed that with Greenland. And, you know, if you grew up in the Cold War era like I did, the missiles in the Arctic and talks over nuclear missiles was a big feature of that era. China also looked at Antarctica in the 60s as a location for transiting missiles against the United States. It was a US and a Chinese scientist who released information on that from documents from Chinese archives. So China's understood the military significance of Antarctica and the Arctic for a long time. They didn't have the capacity for decades. They didn't have the resources to do anything about it. And they're doing what other powers in the Arctic and Antarctic do. They can use science for dual-use purposes. So China can operate in the Arctic and Svalbard, and they can operate in Antarctica anywhere they want to, where they are able to set up a base. And then they can do deep space research that can be used for observing missile launches. They can set up radar ground stations that are important. It's very important military technology for global navigation systems and so on. So there's a lot that can be done that can be also claimed as science. And also the Antarctic Treaty doesn't prohibit the military completely. It says it can be used for peaceful purposes or peaceful use. And what is peaceful use can be in the eye of the beholder. So recently, the US State Department issued an announcement that the US had gone and done a base inspection in Antarctica to see what China's up to. And that's the first time they've done that in years to challenge that kind of stuff where 2 things are going on at once.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, China's into power. It's into asserting itself. I wouldn't trust what it's doing there for 1 second. Anne-Marie Brady, I urge people to follow your writings, to be clued into what's really going on. Anne-Marie Brady, thank you so much for your time.